afternoon, everybody, to another exciting episode of BWHR Voices. Today, we have with us Mr. Unmesh Pawar. He is the Chief People Officer of Dentsu International South-Asia. We welcome you on board, sir. It's a pleasure for us to be speaking with you.
Thank you very much, Sugandh. Great to be here and great to be at another BW People event. Hope we have a great and exciting conversation ahead.
Indeed, indeed. So, for people who do not know what we'll be talking about today, well, our today's discussion is based on the strategies for managing workplace conflicts. Just a small introduction and my own view of what I feel about this topic. So recently, I was actually hearing a podcast by Ashneer Grover, where he was categorically narrating an event. When he had left Grofers and joined Ernst and Young as a partner. So that was a time he remembers, and he states that it was his first day that he was entering the office, and the one thing that he saw was missing in the office was the office banter, the toxicity. He could only see robots working. He was missing that human touch, he said, according to him. And, that is something he feels is, even if it is the office banter or the toxic environment, it keeps the office alive. You know, uh, in in a few minutes, he said he remembers that, he faked a headache and he said that he had to go home, and it was then that he decided that he would not want to be a part of an office environment wherein there are no morning giggles, no chit chats, no feeling of office chaos. So, it doesn't mean that, we are promoting toxic culture at work. It is something that, an office is made of, the chaos, the usual giggles, the laughter, and the joke sessions that they share. So, here the role of a leader is to minimize the concept of office politics for sure, but uplift the culture of office banter. Now, to get deeper insights on how a leader actually should resolve such issues with effective strategies, we have Mr. Pawar with us. So, sir, I will open the forum to you directly with my first question. What, according to you, is the role of a leader in managing such conflicts? And do you feel that office politics and frustrations are a healthy part of office banter?
Great question, Sugandh, and thank you for that. I think before I respond to this question, I would kind of like to talk a little bit about the opening that you used, right? And I think with Ashneer's example, we all know Ashneer is a personality of his own, right?
Right.
And um, so, in the comment I'd like to make is every organization is very different, and different
Mhm.
industries have very different cultures that permeate in the organization. A growth's environment is a relative startup environment, but the vibe, if you be, is very different. It's more lively, it's more vibrant. There's a lot of action happening, and therefore there's a level of decibel and that people are used to, right?
Right.
But the organization you talked about is a professional services organization where people are relatively suited and booted. They're expected to be super professional because that's what they go and do with clients and help consult with clients. And therefore, the environment could be considered slightly quieter, slightly formal, and therefore that it's different, right? Now, it therefore may not necessarily be that the absence of banter or the absence of a vibe effectively means that the environment is toxic, right? May or may not, right? Now, coming to
Sure.
your point with respect to what is the role of a leader and is office politics, office banter healthy? I think banter is great. Banter is why banter is the energy that exists within the organization. And all that is great stuff, right? Because when you walk onto the floor, and I've worked with professional services all my life, and now I work with advertising media company, and it's a very different industry.
Right.
This is a young industry, it's more vibrant, it's more in your face, it's more color. You can see the pop and the color around. So
Right.
it's a very
Right.
different vibe, right? I think it's different in professional services that and a little bit of what I experienced the opposite of that, right? I come from an environment which was stiff and quiet, and to that you come to an environment which is as vibrant and colorful as it is. So banter is great, vibe is great. Is
Mhm.
office politics great? I don't think office politics is healthy in organizations, right? It's not something that you want to feed and see growth happen. But is it an obvious thing? Below the surface, it always exists, right? So I think you cannot run away from an element of politics if you be, and conflict that gets created from some of those insecurities that people have. So if I look at it, then what is the role of leadership in a journey like that? And I think one big element, Sugandh, of a successful, healthy organization, and for me is the word that comes to my mind is flow. Right? So
Okay.
when an organization, communication, information, work, performance,
Hmm.
recognition, and reward moves seamlessly across the organization, and there is flow in the organization, and there is no stagnation in any of these, right? Then what you experience is a truly healthy organization that's vibrant, where you will not have so much of unhealthy conflict or office politics, if you will. So one element is really flow. Now, coming from there is the second element to say, why does then conflict happen, or why do some of these frustrations play out? What you need to understand is at the back of all of this is we are all humans, and every human is different. We have our personalities. Personalities are a factor of our values, which is a factor of how we have grown up, the ecosystem that we have had, and the experiences that we have had,
Right.
uh, shapes our perspectives. So that's one element, is really around personalities and perspective. The second is all of us have certain scars, whether they are personal scars or they are professional scars that we have had at work, which are what I call as past hurts. And those past hurts surface at work when certain situations happen. And we have this fear of, oh, we're going to be hurt all over again, or maybe I'm going to be taken advantage of all over again. So I need to protect myself, right? The third is potentially is competition. Whilst competition is healthy, competition is important, but
Mm-hmm.
competition and the goal, the objectives that the organization is rewarding people with sometimes make people behave in a manner where they ending up competing with each other instead of competing with competition in the marketplace,
Right.
right? And then finally, it's sometimes is about communication skills, or it's about uncertainty that people have in their roles. All of this makes people take certain positions. And when two individuals take very diverse or tangent positions, what you experience is a conflict, right? So that's what, in my mind, conflict at the workplace is all about. And leaders have a big role to play in being able to bring flow into the organization, which is really about, are you doing enough to be able to bring healthy communication in, opening up channels of communication? And we understand that there will be problems at work. And
Right.
therefore, appreciation for the fact that what should be the process that the organization will follow when you reach a situation where you need to solve a problem, rather than it being becoming about individuals. Can it be about the problem where multiple parties come together to be able to solve that problem, right? So I
Right.
think those are my opening thoughts around this. Hopefully it resonates with what your question was, and
No, of
I'm glad
course, it does. It
forward.
does. It solves the query as to what actually should be a strategic approach of a leader and what you should consider in office as normal and something that you could minimize the effect of. So,
Yeah.
many people often wonder and ask, what is the approach to solving problems peacefully? What's your view on the same? Because when you're solving an issue of, let's say, office politics, it is very different, or yet not even understandable that how can you solve this issue peacefully, because it is an amalgamation of two conflicting thoughts that you will be resolving to an extent wherein you might have to partner with one party and the other
Yep.
might feel that it is also a process of favoritism. It's very
Yep.
normal to think that way. So how
Yep.
in your view can we solve this issue peacefully?
So look, I think the fact that there are problems, it requires people like you and me at the work, right? Otherwise, we would not need leaders. An utopian world where everything was fine, you would not need leaders.
Right.
And problems happen because there are conflicting priorities or there is paucity of resources. We all know that there are finite resources that one is dealing with in an organizational ecosystem. And those resources could potentially be apportioned to different needs of the organization. When those resources need to be apportioned to certain priority areas, then you have no choice but to negotiate through that. And in the process of negotiation is where conflict arises, because two people look at the problem very differently, or their points of views could be very different. Right. Now, what do you do about that? I think the first and foremost, I think, is building an appreciation for the fact that acknowledging that there is a conflict. Half the time, what happens is leaders do not want to acknowledge that there is a problem on the team or there's a problem in the organization. And they just kind of take the my way or highway and thereby road roll people into falling in line. Now, when that happens, then people are crying their way into submission to some degree, and their hearts are not aligned with what needs to be achieved. Right. So first and foremost in my mind is really acknowledging the fact that there's a problem and accepting the fact that. Second is really, it's about redefining or redefining the problem itself. Rather than say, oh, Sugandh's got a problem with me, the issue is saying Sugandh has a disconnect with my point of view about this topic.
Exactly.
Right? It's about being able to frame the problem right. Because the moment you frame the problem right, it drops the guard of a lot of people. Because otherwise, what happens is this becomes a ego tussle between me and Sugandh. Once you take away the fear that this is about you or me, and we say, well, Sugandh and I have a disconnect about this issue, then it becomes about the issue, so that objectively Sugandh and I can look at this to say, what is my point of view about it? What is my position? What is my belief value system around this? And what's Sugandh's value system or point of view about it?
So, taking it ahead from the two people to narrowing down to the problem, actually.
Absolutely. Very well said. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to see if you can find a common ground or a neutral ground.
Okay.
And the challenge in organizations is what leaders need to teach their teams is what I use an acronym called DCN, right? Okay. Which is D stands for dialogue, C stands for confrontation, N stands for negotiation. When there is paucity of resources, you dialogue, right? You have, both of us need some team members to run this project, right? But the only finite resources, your project is important and so is mine. Now you can come to me and say, Unmesh, I need these 3 people now to run this project. I'm saying, no, but not happening because my priorities are important. I'm not going to let you have those people, right? So there is, you dialogue with me. Now there is confrontation.
Okay.
You're trying to say, no, this is important. The client wants this to be done by so-and-so date. You can wait. You have these people for so long. I want to do this right now. So now what has happened is there is confrontation. There is conflict because there is conflict of interest, right? Your interests and my interests are not aligning. So what is your choice? Your choice is you and I can fight and you can go angry and sit in 2 corners and your client suffers and the organization loses in the process. Right. The other position for you is to say you can go running to your boss and say, boss, Unmesh is not listening. And hopefully the boss will be a mediation in between. Now, the chances are, what if the boss rules in favor of Unmesh again? So you've gone to the Supreme Court in your mind and you've got a ruling which is against you that makes you further unhappy.
Exactly.
So what I believe is what we need to teach our leaders on our teams is the art of negotiating. Right? Okay. And the art of negotiation is about saying, what are first principles? What are our priorities? What are we solving for? I am not solving for Sugandh to look like a star, or I'm not solving for Unmesh to look like a star. I am solving for client centricity.
And basically, the company is also achieving merits in that because in a way you're solving a problem. You're not, juggling between the tussle of 2 employees. You're actually narrowing down to a problem and let's solve the problem together.
Absolutely. So what you're trying to do is you are trying to achieve a particular objective for the organization, and that's the role of the leader, is to align people to a particular vision or an objective, so that it doesn't become about you or your career and my career only. It becomes about what can we do to meet this bigger objective. Because when we meet the bigger objectives, the smaller things don't matter. We do not sweat small stuff. We work for the big picture, and in the process we are comfortable to say it's all right, this time I'm letting go of it, because this is in the large interest of the organization, right? And every time I find myself in conflicting situations, my submission to my leaders, whether my team members or my business leaders, is what is the right answer for the client, what is the right answer for our organization as a brand, and what is the right answer for our people.
Very strategic approach to the response that you've given.
Right. So when you do a tick against all of these three, then you know what the decision needs to be. Right.
No, very
so
true.
That in my mind is how you find common ground. And it's also important as a leader that when you're trying to find common ground, you are listening to all the voices on the table. Right. Because leaders do not want to listen to dissenting voices. And in the dissenting voices is potentially a pitfall that you are blind to. So when you listen to all the voices on the team, you have a better chance of refining your idea and solving the problem and moving forward. And therefore, at the end of it, when you co-create a solution and build consensus around it, everybody feels equally energized and excited that we are doing something for the larger good of the organization. So that, in my mind, rather long answer, but hopefully I've tried to demystify this a little bit.
No, it was a very important aspect that we've tried to address, and a very strategic response to how one should deal with forgetting people, narrowing it down to the problem, so that it doesn't come as a response that you're favoring one or the other. Because as a leader, your basic agenda is to solve the issue for your client so that your company is in safe spot. So bang on answer.
Glad you liked it. Thank you.
Also, sir, do you think employee engagement activities can act as a bridge, in certain situation, in order to strengthen, the bond between employees, or do you think it will further strengthen the emotion of competition?
I think, again, great question. Look, the way I look at this is an important element in an organization is trust.
Okay.
Right? If I trust you and you call me for something, I'll say, it's okay, Sugandh, I get it. When there is lack of trust, then you have to work that much harder on everything that you would want to convince me about. And therefore, some of these employee engagement initiatives, in my mind, are really about building a community. Building a community on common interest, building a community on things that we are excited about, that we are passionate about. But also at the root of all of this, when individuals come together, you build trust, you build relationships, you build a sense of bond. So in my mind, engagement activities actually are enablers, help building trust. And in that way, hopefully it reduces unhealthy competition. Competition is great, right? We all need to, some amount of stress is always good in the system.
Right.
Because if you're not good, you don't have healthy stress, you're not stretching yourself, then you are not potentially exploring the boundaries that you can kind of leapfrog. So in my mind, engagement is great because it helps to build bonds. Bonds help you to build better connections that allows you to solve for better problems in the organization. It builds a healthy working environment for everybody, and it hopefully reduces friction in the organization. So in my mind, I think employee engagement activities actually help, in my mind.
No, fair enough. In the response that you've given, along with the analysis of why you feel so and how it exactly should be done, it suffices a statement in itself. Now, considering that a leader is addressing the issue on a broader perspective, because you're not deep delving into what exactly the issue was, how it arose, what were the pain points. Do you think that the role of the line manager is really important in sorting out such issues, and leaders should actually train their line managers on how to address certain issues, because on daily basis it's difficult for leaders to delve into everyday's office banter or politics that keeps going around.
So I'd like to respond to this on two counts, Sugandh, right? One, of course, is I will respond to what the manager needs to do, but I think I'm
Hmm.
also going to take a broader stab at this to say there is a role that at the senior leadership level we have to play in defining the culture of the organization.
Right.
We have a responsibility to build an organization culture that is healthy by virtue of what I would like to call radical candor. Radical
Mm-hmm.
candor is on truth, honesty towards a larger objective, intention at being able to help individuals and team members and peers get to that larger objective where they can be effective as well as you can be effective in the process, right? So I think that's one big element that in my mind as leaders we need to build. So a healthy culture that is safe, that allows people to be able to speak up and
Mm-hmm.
speak what they need to speak rather than having the fear. A lot of people times conflict happens because people do not get to say what they really feel. It's
Right.
pent stuff. In the opening, I talked about some of that, right? Past hurts. So
Right.
if people are not going to be able to talk about their hurts, then they're going to keep quiet about it. But it will lead into passive aggression where
Mm-hmm.
they are unwilling to do stuff, right? So I think it's
Yeah.
important from a culture standpoint to do that. The third is, I think, is really around how organizations manage conflict, right? I think it's
Mm-hmm.
we need to teach our leaders, we need to build a frame around how you manage conflict and make it a process of managing conflict. In the absence of managing conflict, egos come to play, insecurities come to play,
Right.
right? And some of the approaches that I talked about, if those were to be used in an organization, then some of these problems can be elevated or taken away.
Right.
So
Right.
what role does the manager have to play in the process? I think a manager's role is the immediate manager's role is to build a very strong connection with their team members, right? When you have a strong connection, when it moves beyond just work to ensuring that the connection is based on genuine interest in their team members, there is active trust, right? When there is active trust, there is a safety net that people have to tell
Mm-hmm.
their supervisor or manager saying what's working, what's not working for them, right? And that I
Right.
think is very, and I think we have talked about this, Sugan, before to say times are changing, the leadership template is changing, right? Our team
Exactly.
members are far more capable, far more equipped, and know far more than we do. The only value we can add if you be is life experience, right?
Right.
And therefore, that human connection and the value that we bring to work, being able to help them connect their work to a larger purpose is what we bring to bear. So I think that's, in my mind, the role of the immediate manager is to build that strong connection, build strong trust, relentlessly focus on ensuring that the time that the individual is working with you, this is the best career experience that they have. They're learning, they're growing, they are building new skills, they're getting their spotlight, they're getting the exposure. And when you build an environment like this, where there is flow in the organization, then my sense is the unnecessary drama, unnecessary unhealthy friction, unhealthy politics are all things that you can avoid. And I think, and at the back of all of this is communication, open, honest, upfront communication, where you're genuinely interested in the well-being and the success of the other individual.
Very seamlessly, you categorically enlisted the role of a line manager, because if this goes in sync, then it even becomes easier for the leader also to solve issues on broader perspectives, because considering deep down every day a leader cannot delve into everyday's problem. So very categorically you've set out strategies as well as a map for actually how organizations should resolve the issues of conflicts. Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Amazing thoughts, amazing examples that you gave. I hope there are people who hearing this session and viewing it might have certain questions as well from you. So for everyone who have questions on how to strategize and on other HR centric, issues that you might be facing in day to day services, You can actually put in your questions on LinkedIn, tag sir. He'll be happy to respond to all your queries. And thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful session again.
So again, Sugandh, great to collaborate with you in doing this. I want to thank you, and we've been doing stuff together for a while now, so it's good to see you in this
Exactly.
avatar. And again, thank you to BW people for doing this. And again, like you rightly said, if people have questions, they have clarifications, they see, or they disagree with what I said, right?
Exactly.
Then
Even conflicts are
I,
welcome.
so I'm happy to engage on LinkedIn and take your views. As I said, these are my views. They may not be the ultimate views on this
No,
topic.
but
There
then
could
they
be
come
other
out of
ways.
experience, of course. So
There
if,
could be
of
other
course,
ways
if there
of
are
doing
people
that.
who
And my
disagree or who have some other views to what you actually said, they can also share their views on LinkedIn. And,
absolutely,
any queries, so we'll be happy to respond to all your queries.
like I said, learn from everybody. That's what I do. And thank you very much. And have a great day ahead to
You too,
you
sir.
and
Thank you so
our
much.
audience on this.
Thank you so much,
Cheers.
sir. Thank you, sir.